and welcome to day 5 of FDP on R programming organized by Department of Computer Science and Engineering, SIPNA College of Engineering and Technology, Amravati. In today's session, we will be looking at two parts or two topics from R programming. First concept will be flow control that we will cover in part 1, and in second part we will be covering functions. So in part 1, these are the learning objectives. We will be looking at various condition statements, condition control statements, looping statements and jump statements, along with the case control statement. And the prerequisite for part 1 is knowledge of basic data structures in R and indexing and slicing operations over a data frame. So a flow control is basically needed when we want to change the by default flow of execution of any program. Every programming language has by default sequential flow of execution. That is, after a particular line, immediate next line will get executed. But when we want to change it, like we want to jump from a particular statement to some other statement, or we may want to skip some lines, or we may want to repeat some line of code. In such cases, we break the sequential flow. So that is why we require a flow control. And as shown in the diagram, these are all the statements that are used to control the flow. So there exist three type of case control control statement. First is condition control statement using if and if else. Then loop control statement, for which we use for, while and repeat. Jump statements, for which we use next and control. And apart from this, there exist case control statement where we use switch. Let us begin with the condition control statement. So condition control statement, as name suggests, they based on some condition, they control the flow of execution. And there exist few versions of this if else statement. The most basic is the if statement. So in if statement, as we can see in the syntax, there is a if keyword followed by expression or a condition. And if that condition comes out to be true, then the statement given in these curly brackets will be executed. This curly bracket shows the scope of if statement. So we can see here that this basic if statement is exactly same as if statement from C or C++. You can also see the flow chart over here. Now to illustrate the working of if else statement, we are going to create two vectors named as in score, that is India score, and aus score, that is Australia score, having three values in it for each of these vectors. So these three values actually are the scores of three different ODI matches, and based on this we are going to illustrate if else. So let's go on RStudio and perform these statements. So first we will be creating two vectors named as in score, where we have three values to be given: 320, say 260, and 240, for example. If we run this, we can see here we have created a vector. Then aus score is another vector that we want to create, again having three values in it. One, let us keep it as 290, sorry, then 270 and 240. So this is second vector that we have generated. You can see here aus score has got generated. So now, going back to slides. Now here is the simple syntax of if statement that we have used, wherein in if statement we are providing conditions that if the in score of the first match is greater than aus score of the same match, then we are saying that India won the first ODI. We can see here in score is a vector, and value provided inside a bracket says that within that vector get a value at the first index. here also from our score get the value at the first index. So in a way we are comparing the scores of both vectors, first scores of both vectors, and if India's score is found to be more than Australia's score, we can print India won the first ODI. So this is basic if statement. Let us execute in R Studio. So if in score is greater than or score, we say print, and in that we will say that India won the first ODI. So if we run this entire command, there seems to be some error. Let me check. Yeah, we are checking for the first ODI, so we must pass here the index of the value from the vector that we want to have. So that was a mistake, and now if I can run this, we can see here India won the first ODI is the output that we have got. So this is simplest if statement that we can have. It only says what to do if the condition comes out to be true, but such if statement may not be more useful when you want to have alternate course of action if condition comes out to be false. So for performing that, we have if else condition in pair. So here the syntax goes like this: if, then the expression, if it comes out to be true, this part will be executed, else, and this part will be executed. If we want to give another condition, then we can of course use if here, but let us not take two conditions for a time being. If the condition is there, if it's true, this will be executed, else this will be executed. That is the basic if else pair operation that we can have. Now check here that if in score of in second match is greater than or score in second match, this means India won the second ODI. But if it is not so, then we'll say that Australia won the second ODI. So let us do it on our studio. So if we are saying that in score in second match is greater than or score from second match, then we will say that in print we can say that India won the second ODI. Otherwise we will say again in print, we will say here Australia won the second ODI. And if I run this, as you can see here, Australia won the second ODI got executed, because if you see both the vectors, in second ODI, Australia had more runs than India. So this will become false because India has less runs than Australia, but we are checking whether India is having more runs. So this will become false, and as it will become false, you will not get you will not enter into print if statement, but you will go into else statement and print whatever given over there. And as it is written Australia won the second ODI, this is what we get as an output. There is another way of writing if else statement, and this is like this. If else, we are writing it together, and in bracket as the first part we are giving the condition, after comma the course of action to be taken if this condition comes out to be true, comma the course of action to be taken if that condition comes out to be false. So this way of writing, or this kind of syntax of if else, is exactly similar to what we had named as a ternary operator in C or C++. There also we had first a condition, and then what if it comes out to be true, and what if it comes out to be false. So like here also, if you can have if else condition, what to do if it is true and what to do if it is false. You can see here we do not use print statement here, because simply it can understand that if double quotes are given, it is ought to be displayed. So if I run the above if else unit in the new syntax, I must give it the same, I must get the same result. So the condition remains the same. So let us copy it from here only. So the condition, comma, what to do if it is true. So if it is true, it means India won the match. But if it is false, we will say Australia won the second ODI. And if I run this, you can see here again we get Australia won the second ODI. So this type of if else syntax is more useful when we have a very limited number of command or a very limited code to be executed as a part of if or else statement. If there is just a single line code to be executed for if as well as else statement, then this kind of syntax is useful. But if there are complex programming involved inside if, or complex programming involved inside else, then our traditional syntax will be more handy. So this is if else with a different kind of way of writing it. Yeah, we have done this. And now what if we want to check more than one conditions? So for checking every condition we will require if. So if we are checking more than one conditions, we will have more than one if statement inside our code. So this is what we can call it as a if else ladder. So here we can see if India's score of third match is greater than Australia's score. If India's score is more, obviously we will print India won the match. Else, now we want to check another condition. So again if will be there. So else if again India score of third match is equal to Australia's score of third match, then we will say it was a tie. But if both of these conditions comes out to be false, this must say that, or this must mean that Australia won the third ODI. So there can be primarily only three output of any ODI match happening. Either team A won or team B won, or match was a tie. So when you are having three possible outcomes, you cannot check it using single if conditions, and that's why such kind of structure is very useful. If we perform this in our studio, we can have if India score of third ODI is greater than Australia score of third ODI, then we will say print India won the match. But if this is not so, then else, again we will have a condition. Let us have it as, suppose India score of third ODI was less than Australia score for third ODI, then we must say that Australia won the third ODI. Australia won the match. But even if this is also not true, then it must mean that the match was a tie, and hence there is no need to check again for another condition. It's the only possible outcome, so that can be written as final else. So match was a tie. And if I run this, I will be able to get, yeah, here we can say match was a tie. This is because if you can check here, India and Australia score in third ODI was equal. And as it was equal, none of the two conditions that we have given got executed, and that's why it came to the final else and gave the result as match was a tie. So this is about if else statements and various versions of if else statements. So now let us have some more practical example or more applicable example of using if else. The previous examples was just for the illustrative purpose, but now what we can do using if else is we can add a new uh, column to some data frame using if else. Now if you remember, yesterday we had created a movies data frame. Now if you have that movies data frame available with you in your RStudio in the environment, you can use it as it is, or else you can create a new movies data frame. Just you will have to use a read CSV function. Now in that data frame we have two two columns named as critic score and audience score. What we will do is we will compare these two column values in these two columns for every row, and accordingly we will add some value in the newly created column. So if you can see this code given below, here we are creating a new column named as DEV, which is a member of movies data frame now, and using if else, the newer version of or newer style of writing if else, we can do comparison like audience score is more than, if it is more than critic score, then it should put 1 into the dev column, otherwise it should put 0 in the dev column. So this is what that code means. Let us perform it on RStudio. So first I will create a movies data frame because I do not have it as of now. So I will use a read.csv function, and I am creating movies data frame from movies.csv file. And you can see here there is newly created movies data frame with 600 rows and 31 variable, that is 31 columns. Now once we create once we read run the code that we have just saw, instead of 31 column it will have 32 columns. So now let us perform this operation, this command on RStudio. Movies, and as soon as we put a member access operator over there, it gives us a list of all available columns in movies data frame, but we want to create new column, so we just gave the name of that new column which we want to create. And now we will use the condition, that is a condition control statement, to add values into that new column. So we will be using newly seen version of if else, because both in if as well as else there is very less code to be executed. And when there is very less code to be executed, this version can be used. So if else, first we will give the condition. The condition is movies audience score. If this score is greater than movies critic score, if it is true, 1 will go in the new column, else 0 will go as a value in the new column. So for all the 600 rows, audience score will be checked with critic score. Wherever audience score will be more, 1 will be given, and wherever audience score comes out to be less than critic score, 0 will be put inside a dev column. After running this, we must get 32 variables as we are adding a new column. So let's run it. And now you can see here there exists 32 variable instead of 31. If we try to view it, if we go on the extreme right corner, we can see here there is newly created dev column that has got added and has been populated with the corresponding 1 or 0 values. So this is what practical use of if-else statement can be. By using if-else statement, we are able to add and fill a new column in the movies data frame. So this is the use of if-else, which is more practical and applicable use. Now we can have a sum function over if-else statement to check how many times the condition came out to be true. So if we see at the last code that we created or we run, whenever audience score was more than critic score, that means whenever the condition was true, it was putting 1 in final column, and whenever the condition coming out to be false, it was putting 0. So now if I want a summary or a final figure of how many times critic score was less than audience score, that is audience score that was more than critic score, if I want that value, I can use this sum function. So now again, this is the code. If else, the code is exactly similar. Just rather than putting this to a new column, we are putting it inside a sum function. So in sum, we are giving if else. In if else, we are having a condition. If that condition comes out to be true, that is audience score is more than critic score, 1 will be the output, otherwise 0 will be the output. And this function will only calculate how many times this condition came out to be true. Means that the result of some function will tell us how many rows have audience score more than critic score. So if we do it on our studio, oh sorry, so again I will call a sum function first, and inside that I am calling if else, and inside if else, first I am giving the condition, that is I have already copied that condition, yeah, in score of third ODI. Oh sorry, it is not about in score, it is about movies. Okay, so I can copy it now from here. Okay, so this is the function, and if I run this, you can see here the count is, or the sum is 312, which means that there exist, out of these 600 rows, there exist 312 rows in which audience score was more than critic score. If we invert this, it means that audience score is less than critic score. It will give us all those when audience score was less than critic score. So let us again run this, and you can see here we got 273. So 312 times audience score was more than critic score, and 273 times critic score was more than audience score. But if we see the addition of these two, it is not coming out to be 600. 312 plus 273 will come out to be 585. Means there are 15 rows with two possibilities. One possibility may be that audience score and critic score was equal, but that possibility cannot be there because we have given here clearly that if audience score is suppose more than or less than, so even if that comes out to be equal, that would have been given as 0. But the another possibility could be that there exist missing values for audience score and critic score. So that missing value, due to that missing value, no result is generated, and that's why that is not coming out to be exactly 600. So this is sum function, and this is condition control statement from R language.